Okay, so I've got these cabinets here, or shelves, that I've made as a family, and now I want to assign materials to these, but also I want to show you some of the issues that you'll often have working with materials and families. So firstly, I'm just going to show you that if I go to Edit Type, there's no material setting there, and in Properties over on the left, there's no material. So I'm going to click Edit Family, and this is probably what you'd think naturally, to go and change the material now. We've got no option in this project, so by choosing Edit Family, we can go to the file that the shelf's in and try to change it there. It'll definitely work the first time, so I'm going to select one of my extrusions, and then I can assign a material. So that will work. And here, if I go and browse, once I've clicked there, where it says by category, the little browse button comes up, and click. Yes. Oh yeah, sure. So I don't know why that one didn't come up. Let's try again. Is that working now? Oh, here we go. So it should come up. There we go. Okay, so I've got a smaller list of materials in this file, which is, I think, helpful for you to see, because then it makes it clear that we're working in a different file with its own set of materials. So this is the shelf file, and I could, duplicate a material that I've got here, like I've shown you before in the project file, and make a new one. But often an easier option, when you're in a family, because you don't have very many materials to start off with, you can click on this button here, and that brings up the, well, I'm going to call it the material library for your Revit materials. So you've got these AEC materials. AEC just means architecture, engineering, construction. It's just an Autodesk thing. And if we go down and have a look, maybe I want to have wood. So then we've got all these different types of wood we can use just as a starting point. Of course, we can change them after that. So, well, when I used to actually make these shelves in real life, we did use pretty nice veneers for that. So maybe I'll see if I can find a decent veneer. That veneer is just timber that's cut into thin strips, so you can really use any wood you like for veneers. So what's a good one? Maybe the spruce. Where was that? That could be alright. Okay. Well, actually, that's good for you to see as well. So I've chosen this spruce material, but now that I look at it, I can see that it's using what's called this noise procedure. That's not actually an image of wood. It's using a formula, and I don't want that. I want one that's using a nice image. So I'm going to choose a different one, maybe the softwood. Let's see what that's like. Yeah, there we are. So that softwood, you can see, uses an image, PNG file, which means it's a photo, and it's probably going to give a better look. So I'm happy with that one. And I'll go back to graphics, and I'm just going to tick Use Render Appearance and click OK. Oh, sorry, actually it's called Softwood Lumber. Maybe just so it's really clear, I'm going to rename that just by right-clicking on that name there. Going to rename, I'm going to call this Timber Veneer. Just so you can see that name come up when I go back to the project. So I'll click OK, and it has been assigned, but I can't really see it clearly here because I'm in hidden line view, so I'll just go to shaded, and you can see that it's actually assigned it to all of the shelves because they were joined. Right, so that's another thing, using the join tool there. When you make lots of extrusions and other things, if you join them together, then it'll assign the material to all of those things as a group, and you don't have to select each one. But you can see that my legs still don't have that material. And again, when I used to make these things in real life, they did have little turned wooden legs. So I'm going to make those also have my same timber. So I've just selected them, and over here I'm going to choose the same option and just select the same material. So that's working. And so then I'm going to, well, maybe save the file just to make sure that I don't lose my changes. And yeah, so I'll just keep it called shelf curve proxy, even though it's not really a proxy anymore. And then I'll click load into project. And when you get this selection, it really doesn't matter too much which option you choose most of the time. But if you're not working with parameters, it definitely doesn't make any difference. And at the moment, we haven't worked with any parameters yet, so you can choose either option. I'll just use the first one. And you can see, no problem, all my shelves change material. So that's not where you'll have the problem. The problem is when you go to then change that material. And this is where I notice most people have an issue, because what you'll do naturally is think, well, I can just do the same thing now to change the material. Select the shelf, click Edit Family, and go back into that file and make the timber different. So I'll do that. So I'm going to select the same shelf again so I can see the material. Click there to go to the material browser, and maybe I'll just go to here and turn that stain off. I don't really like the stain, so I'm happy to turn that off. And click OK. And you can't really tell much difference here, but if I go to realistic, you can see that the colour has changed. Just so I can prove that to you, I'll just go back and turn it on again. So with the stain on, that's how it looked, a bit oversaturated really, I think. So again, back to here and turn the stain off. So that's actually much nicer timber, I think. And so I'll save that, and then so it's changed. I'll load it back into the project and think, great, now I can just click either of these options. Again, I'll just prove to you it doesn't make any difference at this stage. I'll choose the bottom option this time. No change. If I'd chosen the first option at the top, it still wouldn't have made a change. So, have you had that problem? Yeah, if you've tried to make your own families, or even loaded other people's families, will often have the same problem. And there is a logical, technical reason for it, but I won't go too far into that. So, to make it work, you essentially need to work with parameters to make it work in a sensible way. There is a quick way that's maybe not as logical, but it works. The quick way of changing the material without needing to do the next thing I'm going to show you is to just go to the Manage tab and go to Materials. And as long as you know the name of that material, you can change it in the project file. So the reason it didn't change is because when I loaded the family the first time, it brought that material in for the first time, this material called Timber Veneer, from the family file, and of course it was set up the way it was in the family. But then after I made the change the second time, and then loaded it in, then the Timber Veneer material was already there in the project file. So it's got its own version of the Timber Veneer material, and the family has its own version. And they're different, because they're in different files. And that's why I didn't bring the change across. So here you can see the stain is still turned on, because in the project file, Timber Veneer still has that setting. So it's just that you've got the two versions of the material. And I can turn it off there, and that would, of course, make the change. No problem.
So you basically need to change from the source to the material?
No, you change it in the destination. Yeah, the first go you can change it in the source because it's loading it in for the first time. But after the first time, yeah, that's right, yeah. So that's the quick and dirty way, but it's not really very logical, really, because you have to know the name of the material each time, and you're often not going to be thinking that way. You want to be selecting the object that you want to change the material on, and get to it from there. And you can do that. It's just a little bit more setup. So what I'm going to do next is, again, select the same family, go back to Edit Family, and I'm going to select all of my pieces of the shelves, but not the legs. And then over in Properties, you can see next to the Material option, you've got that little blank button. So when you click there, that lets you add a parameter. And parameters are actually pretty easy. There aren't too many steps to adding a parameter, but I know if you haven't used them before, it'll seem like a new thing. So it's worth just practicing a little bit. And so here, once this comes up, you can just click New Parameter, and I'm going to call it Shelf Material. And that's it. And then OK. And potentially, I might want the legs to be a different material. So I'm going to select the legs, and then again go to the same option in Properties, and then again click New Parameter, and this time I'll call it Leg Material. And then, yep.
This one is good also if you want to have, for example, some sharp and glass, with some other blue, and you say,
Yeah, so you could have, so if I want this shelf to be potentially different, I could give it a different parameter. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'll show you that. So if I click here, so I could again just choose New Parameter and call that, you know, middle shelf material or something. Yeah. So,
can you unjoin it?
oh yes, of course, yeah. So yeah, that's good to know actually. So yeah, if you click on the down arrow next to join, then you can go to unjoin. And yes, I would have to unjoin it to give that different parameter. Yeah, so that's good. Yeah, think about that.
So if you, maybe choose the material like that, and then choose the parameter like material way to the text.
Yes, yep, that's right. And that's what I'm going to show you now. So yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So again, you want to get into the habit of saving your projects, so your family files before you load them, just in case something goes wrong. And now I can load into project. And it, again, doesn't really matter which option I choose here. Even though I have been working with parameters, I haven't changed any of the settings. I'll choose the bottom option anyway, but again, it's not really going to matter. But now, if I select these shelves, I can go to Edit Type, and then see the material settings in the type properties. So that means when you set up parameters like that, you end up assigning materials in the project, and you don't have to worry about making materials very much or managing them in the family files. You do it all in the project file, and that's actually more logical because you'll have most of the things that you're working on together in the project file, and you'll often have materials that are common to many families, so you wouldn't really want to make them in each separate family file. It makes more sense to make them in the project file and just assign them to parameters that you've already set up in the families. And that's the key to it. So now I can change the leg material just by browsing here, and maybe instead of doing it the way I used to build them, I'll make it metal. And we'll see all of the legs of these now have a different material. Easy. So now that means that, of course, with your own families, you can assign your own parameters for materials. And material parameters are actually easier to assign than the materials themselves. But then also, when you download other people's families, you'll be able to check and understand how the material parameters have been assigned. And you can always add your own. Particularly when you get families, say, from Revit City. I'm just going to go and load in one maybe. So in the main Revit library, we've got tons of these. I'll just put a shortcut. Here we go. So a lot of these Revit City families don't have material parameters. Or if they do, they're not set up properly. So I'm just going to grab, there, that's what I want. Okay, so my tables and chairs, they've got materials, but when I go to Edit Type, no option to change them. So what do? Again, Edit Family, select one of the pieces. You can see it's already wood, and if I select it, it's going to show up over here, telling us they called it chair leg wood, that material. I'm not going to try to change it here because that wouldn't change the project. So instead, I'm just going to hold down Control and select all of the parts that I want to be that wood material. So basically all of the table there, I'll get the legs as well. For the chairs. Oops. So I'm just holding down control here to keep selecting more things. Now watch out there. When you see this, I've selected a lot of things, and you can see now it's not going to let me assign what I want. So there's a couple of options. You can either click on filter, and you can see there that I've actually picked up some voids. I don't want those, so I'm just going to turn that off. You can also check in the little drop-down list there that you saw me click on, and then again see what things you've got selected. So now you can see, because I've just come back to have the solid things selected, the extrusions and the other things that have been made for these legs and the table, I can click there, associate family parameter, new, and we'll call this table and chair legs. Yeah, that'll do. And so I might just save that. In fact, I'll save it back into the main library. You'll be able to get to it as well. And then again, loading the project, override existing version. So now when I select that table and chair, go to edit type, and there's my table chair legs parameter. It hasn't changed the material yet, but I can now have the option of clicking there and changing it to, well, let's just do it logically and get the same same wood I'm using for the shelves, maybe. There we go. So I thought that should be a thing that's really helpful for you. Yep. And I know everyone comes across that problem, and it's natural. It's actually good to experience the problem, because then it'll make a lot more sense to you when you see how to fix it. And but yeah, again, I want to go for rendering in a little while, so I'll do that next. I'll give you some time to try that and some other things, and then a bit of a look at rendering. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, put up, and I'll probably post it straight away today. The ones I did last week, let me know if I've forgotten any, but I think I put everything up from last week as well.